What's up, Mafia Nation? Welcome back. It's LVT.
I'm MAGZ.
And we're here to do another reaction video for you. Let's get it.
All right, we are checking out some Sabaton. This is the, I think I pulled up the wrong one. We need the history first.
There you go. Joakim!
Yep, we're doing Inmate 4859, the story of Witold Pilecki. This was a donation request from Neidell. Thank you so much,
Thanks,
Neidell.
Neidell.
I always love doing these Sabaton things. I learn so much.
Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah, for sure. I never gave a single shit about history when I was in school, but now watching this, I'm like, ooh, I can't get enough. I'm like, can we do more Sabaton history?
I think the reason we enjoy it so much is because of the way they do it, the way they tell it, and then the way
they're
they
good
show
storytellers for sure.
Yeah, like it's different than being in school. Like, oh, look, read this book, and that's it.
And your teacher makes you fall asleep while you're at your desk. You're like,
Yeah.
What? I'm here. Yep.
Exactly. Copy down this page for notes.
And all of the stories that we've heard so far are not stories that I've been taught in school. So
yeah, like we've had a couple where like we had learned a little bit here, a little bit there, but nothing in detail like this.
yes, correct.
Yeah.
So, but before we get into watching this Sabaton history,
Make sure you subscribe.
smash that notification bell.
And please don't forget to like, comment, share with everybody you know, so that way we can all enjoy this video together.
Yes, guys, that is the best way to do it, because if you are not subscribed and you don't have that post notification bell turned on, you don't get notified when we do things like live stream or post videos.
Yeah, our live streams are fun.
They are
If you haven't been to one of our live streams, you should definitely try to hop in one.
The story of Witold Pilecki is one of the great 20th century stories of bravery and sacrifice.
And our song Inmate 4859 is about the brave man, Witold Pilecki.
Ooh. The song's gonna go so hard when we get to it.
Well then.
The little Hitler poster was funny. And they're hanging the swastika.
The story of Witold Pilecki is as tragic as it is heroic, and it is one for the ages. He was born in the Russian Empire near the Finnish border in 1901, spent his youth as part of the nationalistic Polish Pathfinders, and fought in independent Poland's new army against the Soviets in the Polish-Soviet War. He lived a peaceful life for much of the interwar years, but eventually returned to the Army Reserve, and in 1939 was mobilized against the German invasion. Pilecki's Ulan regiment was shattered by the advancing Wehrmacht, but he joined other Polish stragglers and kept fighting until the fall of Warsaw. In late October, he disappeared into the underground, where he joined the resistance movement of the Tajna.
Which Warsaw was another one I did, which was the uprising one. Like, they were literally doing guerrilla warfare in this city, like delivering notes under tunnels and like crawling through tunnels, and like they were surrounded by the Germans, and the Soviets were being douchebags right out the city, not helping them.
So they had to find a way to get messages out to allies. They tried radioing allies, and they said they were going to try to help, but by the time anybody was able to help them, it was too late. Like, they tried dropping care packages, and look, at that point, Germans got a hold of it. Like, they were literally pinned in the middle of the city. Like, it started on the whole city. And right, they pushed them in so that way they're in a small confined area.
They fought them for months and held them off, and it was amazing. And so, sorry, I just had to tell her that because I did see that one. But yeah, like, that's another story of how the Polish didn't just give up like everybody thought.
Yes. Way to go, Poland. I have Polish in my blood. So.
Get it, man?
In October, he disappeared stragglers and kept fighting until the fall of Warsaw. In late October, he disappeared into the underground, where he joined the resistance movement of the Tajna Armia Polska, an arm of the Armia Krajowa, the Polish Home Army. Now, one of their tasks was to get inside knowledge about German prisoner of war camps, and one camp in particular in the small town of Auschwitz in German,
man.
where many Poles simply disappeared. It was suspected that they were sent to Germany as forced labor, but no one knew for sure. Pilecki
is not what happened to them.
That is not what happened.
He would personally infiltrate Auschwitz uncover the truth.
I may not know a lot from school, but I know that Auschwitz was not a good place to be. If you were there, you were doomed.
Yeah.
You were doomed.
Plan. He would personally infiltrate Auschwitz, uncover the truth, and organize resistance in the camp.
Weirdly enough, I also am a lot German
Using the alias
heritage.
Tomas Serafinsky, he intentionally walked into a German security sweep on the streets of Warsaw. SS men seized him, and the next day he was herded alongside other Poles into trucks at the Warsaw train station. All day they drove east. The men pressed together without food or water. Now, the rest of this story is told directly from the source material, from Pilecki's personal report about his experiences in the camp. It is not pretty. Arriving at the camp,
he survived
Pilecki
it.
and the crowd of men were driven forward by brutal beatings from the guards. Some men were pulled out of the group at random, unprovoked, and shot in the head to break any thoughts of resistance. Accompanied by the laughter of the guards, they were then pushed on past the barbed wire and towards the parade ground, where a group of men in striped clothes was waiting for them. These men jumped the newcomers with fists and clubs. Some were actually beaten to death. The men in the striped clothes then asked them questions about their backgrounds and their jobs. And those who said academics or doctors were knocked to the ground. With boots kicking against their heads, their murderers proclaimed that this is the concentration camp Auschwitz, my good man.
Jesus.
So, lie.
His head shaved.
Well, that's the thing is, like, if you think about it, the men in the striped clothes were the prisoners.
Right.
So, like, they probably had no choice of either you're going to do this or you're just going to die right now like everybody else did. And,
Right. Yeah,
Oh my God.
it's a lose-lose situation at that point of, like, you do this or I end your life. If you do this, I may not end your life.
Yeah.
So in that situation, what do you do?
I don't know how I would do it.
His
I'm not
head
gonna lie.
shaved. Pilecki hurried out of the bathhouse, though a guardsman knocked out 2 of his front teeth because he did not hold the sign with his prison number between them. From now on, Pilecki was neither himself nor Tomas, but a number, prisoner 4859. In his paper-thin blue and white striped uniform and a pair of ill-fitting wooden shoes, he found himself once again on the parade ground. There, he encountered the murderous men again. They were called kapos, prisoner functionaries. Often German or Polish criminals, they were tasked with, let's say, keeping things in line inside the camp, since the regular SS men lived in barracks outside, right? Most of the kapos were violent sadists who enjoyed brutally beating and torturing the helpless
you
prisoners. Wearing
imagine?
yellow armbands with the capo label,
Like-
they also
I know we're pausing this a lot, but I'm sorry. Could you imagine if our American government was like, hey, prisoners, you've done some real shitty things. Let's put you in charge of a group of people.
Unfortunately, you know, it worked for what they wanted them to do.
Well, yeah, what they wanted, which was to brutally torment and, like, harass people. But, like, in modern day society and, like, people who don't have the mindset of, I just want to, like, beat, torture, and burn down everything.
Yeah. It's,
Like, that's so fucked up.
yeah. It's,
Beep.
it's
Stop.
It's disturbing.
beating and torturing the helpless prisoners. Wearing yellow armbands with the capo label, they also oversaw the labor companies, to one of which Pilecki was assigned. In that labor company, it became clear that Auschwitz aimed to first exterminate the Polish intelligentsia. Prisoners with academic backgrounds who were not used to demanding physical work or who lacked the experience or the dexterity to work in the quarries were mercilessly beaten to death by the capos. Being
Jesus.
too exhausted to lift another brick or to push a wheelbarrow was also a death sentence. Every evening, fewer people returned to the main camp.
Jesus.
Every walk to the latrines, every trip to the bathhouse was accompanied by beatings and harassment. Those who came late to morning parade or tried to hide away were hunted down, dragged to the parade ground, and either hanged or shot in front of the others. Many tried to kill themselves, usually early in the morning before the day of torture began. If anyone tried to escape, the whole block was punished for it, standing out in the open for hours or doing punishment sports where men too exhausted to lift their arms fell down and died under the boots of the capos. Often, the only time to catch your breath was when they were busy murdering another prisoner. Pilecki's good physical condition saved him from this fate. But for how long could that last? Well, Pilecki set out to build his first resistance cell, a group of 5 men. Later, he would create other 5er groups, but none of them knew of the existence of the others. So in case they were captured and tortured, they could not betray the whole network, right? Those groups would either organize food or clothing, or would help other members to get a job, since it was clear from day one that staying in the worker groups, the labor groups, even well-conditioned men like Pilecki would soon die. So many of those worker prisoners did in fact die that the prisoners had to build the first camp crematorium. Pilecki noted that the camp became one big mill which ground living people to ash. In 1941, as more and more prisoners were brought in, the camp grew. Larger fences were needed, more barbed wire and more guard towers. And as Auschwitz grew, it needed to feed itself. And this opened up jobs for the older prisoners. With careful planning, Pilecki got his 5er groups into the carpenters, the postal service, and the barbers. He eventually got himself a job as a repairman for an oven inside an SS man's house outside the camp. Upon leaving the living hell of Auschwitz, he returned to a world of lavish gardens, laughing children at play, and villagers having normal, everyday conversations with one another. Pilecki felt the questions burning inside him. What was the real world? What was the real nature of man? What was the culture of the 20th century? Since mankind had advanced so far from the barbarism of old, how is this still possible? Or was this the true face of humanity? Would the whole world look like this if the boundaries of civilization disappeared?
Look, that's a powerful question.
Yeah.
And I feel like
each morning,
time and time after years, we've proved that. Unfortunately, that's how we would truly be.
Alive. Their bodies thin to the bone, black and blue from the daily beatings, riddled with lice and fleas, living on a starvation diet. Only his daily mantra, "You're not giving up," helped Pilecki keep on and try to inspire others to do the same. Survival was only possible through friendship and mutual help. Loners died quick. Now, up until May 1941, it was possible for ordinary Poles to be released from Auschwitz, mostly by their families paying enormous sums to the Germans. Those released prisoners smuggled Pilecki's notes to the Armia Krajowa, but when the war between Germany and the Soviet Union began, this stopped. Instead, new groups began arriving to the camp. Many were now Jews, and by the end of August, the first Soviet prisoners were transported to Auschwitz. Pilecki reports that one day, 700 officers were tightly packed into a room all day, till finally a group of German soldiers with gas masks on threw gas containers inside. This was the first act of gassing people with hydrogen cyanide at Auschwitz, according to Pilecki. Soon after, though, on his way to work, he passed groups of naked Soviet prisoners waiting to be led into the crematorium, where they were gassed and burned. The capos were often brutal savages, but the bestiality of some of the SS guards was even worse. Pilecki tells of guard dogs trained to go for the throats of prisoners, the torture of smashing testicles with a hammer, and many stories far too nightmarish to tell here. Now with his cells set up in important positions all over the camp, Pilecki was ready to start a revolt, but he needed help from the outside to be successful. The prisoners were thirsty for revenge, and they were ready for anything since they did not fear death after all they had endured. But even had they managed to overwhelm the guards and take the camp, they would not be able to hold it for long. Pilecki believed that the Armia Krajowa had received at least one of his messages. He had urged them to stage an attack or send in paratroopers from the Free Polish Army over in Britain or drop a crate of arms onto them or something. But so far, nothing. Without help from the outside, Pilecki's third Christmas in Auschwitz came and went. And Auschwitz was now changing. There was no longer collective punishment, no outright murder, or even everyday brutality, or at least it was toned down. See, Auschwitz became a factory which would now systematically murder its prisoners instead of individualistic random killing. Not with the batons of the capos, but with phenol and gas. There were 3 crematoriums working simultaneously, able to burn corpses within minutes. By April 1943, more and more of the surviving Poles were sent out of Auschwitz to make room for Jewish prisoners from all over Europe and the Soviet Union. This meant the end of Pilecki's network, as its members were sent to other camps. So after 2 years and 7 months of surviving in Auschwitz, Pilecki decided it was time to break out, since an uprising was no longer possible. He got a night shift job at a bakery outside the camp. Shortly after Easter, as one guard was asleep, he and 2 other men pushed the door open and ran. Shots cracked out behind them, but they ran all night and all day until they reached a small town. With help from patriotic Poles, Pilecki smuggled himself back to Warsaw, where, on August 23, 1943, after nearly 1,000 days in Auschwitz, he met with commanders of the Armia Krajowa, telling them of his experiences, all the death, all the torture, but people hesitated to believe him. It seemed all too unbelievable, even for the hated Germans to do all this killing. They knew it was bad, but not this bad. Pilecki would stay in the underground army and fight in the Warsaw Uprising.
Think about how lucky he was, because once him and those other 2 men escaped, all it would have taken is them running into the wrong person and asking help from the wrong person to get their asses sent back and to be murdered.
Oh, they wouldn't be sent back. They would have just been executed.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
Like, well, you know, depending on how the guards felt it was appropriate to execute them. You know, because I'm sure they would have loved to torture the people who escaped to make an example out of, don't do this.
Yeah.
This is what's going to happen. Like, that's, oh man, the amount of luck for that little bit of time.
It's bad. Pilecki would stay in the underground army and fight in the Warsaw Uprising of 1944. He was later interned in prisoner of war camps, and after liberation in 1945, was assigned to the 2nd Corps of the Polish Army in Italy.
So he survived the
where he
camps
turned in his
and that
report
uprising
Auschwitz
that I told
to
you
the
about, whenever
British.
pinned in the city.
For Pilecki,
This poor guy.
Auschwitz was the symbol of the Polish struggle for existence. He himself could never go back to a normal civilian life after experiencing what you've just heard. He maintained contact with the underground resistance, now against the Soviet Union, after the war, and indeed returned to Poland in late 1945 to report on the Soviet occupation. He lived and worked undercover, but on May the 8th, 1947, the Ministry of Public Security captured him. He was tortured and dragged before a kangaroo court and accused of many things, including espionage and planning an armed uprising. The sentence was death. On May 25th, 1948, in the Mokotów prison in Warsaw, Witold Pilecki was executed. His final resting place remains unknown.
Are you kidding me?
In 1990,
survived all that just
and
to
others
get
from that show trial were rehabilitated, and today he is celebrated, and with good reason, as a Polish patriot and a hero. Now, we cannot even imagine what he went through and what courage it must have taken to do so. It's a pretty heavy story, you know?
Yeah, I gotta be honest, I don't know how many people we researched for the Heroes album, but if there ever was a slam dunk, you know, pardon my language, what the fuck moment, this was it, I would say.
And it is, you know, their sacrifice is one thing, bravery is another thing, but doing all of that, I mean, think of the odds. I mean, getting in and getting out.
Yeah, I'm gonna go to Auschwitz on purpose.
And then I'm gonna get out on purpose. And doing all that for a cause, and for what is, essentially, what is a noble and a just cause, any way you slice it.
Yeah, and I mean, I am so surprised also that how isn't there a major Hollywood blockbuster about this?
That makes no sense.
Right.
Yeah, it's...
Good
and
point.
people are coming up with, you know, Hollywood scripts. I mean, I'm not bashing the film industry here, don't get me wrong, but I mean, people are making scripts that are less fantastic and not true, and still nobody.
And this is a true story, and even the tragic ending and stuff. You know,
Yeah.
That's what
Maybe
got
that's
me.
why they're not doing it.
Well, they could throw in a romantic interest or something. They could have Gwyneth Paltrow, maybe. I don't know.
Romance in Auschwitz, great.
Come on.
Stranger things have happened in Hollywood.
Yes, true.
You know, but that leads you to wonder. I mean, there must have been romantic stories in Auschwitz.
I guess so. I mean, we met a woman called Anna who fought in the Polish resistance during the uprising.
Yeah.
She actually said that, yeah, she was flirting with a guy in the middle of, you know, I mean, not as they were shooting, I guess.
Yeah. But I mean, but that's not 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Exactly. So, I mean, she said it's strange how man, or, you know, you can normalize such a extreme situation and life still goes on. You still go to the toilet, everybody understands that, but you are still actually falling in love while fighting or waging a war, you know?
And if this guy could break out, then of course you could break from the men's side to the women's side.
Yeah.
You know, it's nothing. I mean, if there's one thing this all proves is nothing is impossible. Nothing is as impossible as you think. No, but it's, you know what would, even more than just a Hollywood movie, it'd be a good miniseries.
Yes,
you know?
Actually. HBO, do you hear this?
See? Anybody out there that's HBO
I love him. He's so
Yuki
funny.
and I'll write it. I mean, I'm a
he's
writer,
epic.
and he's good at emotion. So together we could do it.
Yeah, but don't put me in acting in it because I suck as an actor. So,
As we've noticed over these months of
Yes.
Sabaton history, ladies and gentlemen. What about the actual song itself, though? Did you decide on the topic before you wrote the song, or did you have the music sitting around and
wrote the music with Peter, our producer. The first time we wrote a song together, and him, you know, coming from, you know, Lindemann, Pain, Hypocrisy, those bands, and the harder side of things, it became a bit of a harder and very, very dark song. So as we were writing that song, I realized that this is the song, because obviously, even though it's a very, very, you know, we're singing about a very courageous man, it would not have made sense at all to have a, you know, proud, uplifting song for the subject. You know?
Especially, I wonder what he was like as a person, like personality-wise, because you don't. I mean, from the story, you can see, okay, he's got a lot of dedication. But you meet someone on the street, you don't know if they're a dedicated type person or not. No. So it would be really interesting. Well, that's your homework, guys, to go and put the song on and think of Witold Pilecki.
Which we're going to do in the next video.
Thank you very much.
See you next time.
All right, everyone, here's the drill. A lot of you have been supporting us through Patreon, and I'd like to thank you all so much for that. It really helps. That's what makes this channel happen. So click on subscribe. You know the drill, basically. And I just want to say thank you all. See you soon.
You're welcome, and yes, you will.
I was going to say you're welcome, but I was like, oh, I didn't want to go there.
I went there.
I'm glad you went there.
Without shame or consequence. Man, that's a up story.
Yeah.
Like, sorry guys, it's 4 a.m. How are you about to get through all that shit and then get captured and fucking executed? Pardon my language, but like,
he didn't
geez.
he didn't even get like captured by the enemy either. He was captured by his own people, and like they made up lies about him. Actually, I don't know if it was his own people, so as like it was the Soviets that were in charge. Mm-hmm. But either way, to survive all that and go out that way, that's the suck.
That's so messed up.
Being charged with things that you didn't even do.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that boils my blood on so many levels.
Yeah, a lot of these are uplifting, but a lot of them are just like makes you like just wow. And like it always, when it ends up being stories like this, it always seems like the heroes, the people who really cared and tried, are just always
shot down,
shit on and everything. Yeah, it's
so sad. But once again, this was great. We had a good time.
We did.
We're about to go over and watch the music video now, so be sure to keep your eyes peeled for that, as well as check out our wow, we don't usually switch this, do we? You do this part.
check out the donation link in the. Oh wait, no, you threw me off. You guys have any other recommendations? Let us know in the comments below.
Bam! That's the word.
Threw me off. You started off with the donation.
Comments, and then check out our Discord.
Yep.
And then check out our donation link. And then check out our merch store. And then social media. Listen, Ryan usually says some things, I say the other things. So when we decide to throw each other curveballs, this is what happens, and we get.
Yeah, we try to.
Word soup.
Yeah, we try to change it up a little bit sometimes because we know that we don't want to sound like robots all the time. So we do try to change it up a little bit, and it's just we're stuck in that rut of comfortability, and that's where we're at with it.
Also, once again, it's 4 a.m.
4 in the morning. All right.
The things we do for you because we love you.
But thank you guys again. Till next time.